Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to do a deep dive into the world of Tesla.
The future of Tesla.
Yeah, their future. You guys have been asking us to examine their biggest risks and opportunities and what the future holds for their stock.
That's right. Both the short term and the long term.
Exactly. So we've got a lot to unpack here. We've got Tesla's Q3 2024 update, their investor relations material,
Oh, yeah.
and even their latest SEC filing. So
Buckle up.
yeah, buckle up because we're about to break it all down.
It's a fascinating time for Tesla.
Yeah.
They're at a crossroads.
Yeah.
Facing tremendous opportunities, but also
Huge challenges.
significant challenges. Yeah.
So let's start with their recent performance.
Okay.
Tesla's Q3 report showed an 8% year-over-year revenue increase to $25.2 billion.
Wow.
Record-setting Q3 deliveries with a return to year-over-year growth, their second highest quarterly regulatory credit revenue ever,
That's impressive.
and their lowest EVR cost of goods sold per vehicle, around $35,100.
Wow. That's
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. That last point about the cost of goods sold is particularly noteworthy.
Yeah.
It indicates that Tesla is getting better at scaling production
Right.
and becoming more efficient,
Right.
which could give them a significant advantage in the increasingly competitive EV market.
But speaking of competition, that's one of the big risks facing Tesla, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It seems like every automaker
Yeah.
is jumping on the EV bandwagon these days.
You're absolutely right. The competition is heating up.
Yeah.
Established players like Ford, Volkswagen, Hyundai,
Yeah.
they're all investing heavily in EVs and launching new models that directly challenge Tesla's dominance.
Okay, so that's one risk. What else should we be worried about?
Well, Tesla's also heavily reliant on single-source suppliers for certain critical components,
Right.
which makes them vulnerable to supply chain disruptions.
Yeah, like what happened with the chips?
Exactly. Remember the global chip shortage a few years back?
Oh, yeah.
That caused major headaches for the entire auto industry.
Huge. Yeah.
And Tesla wasn't immune.
Right, so supply chain issues are a real concern. What about regulatory scrutiny?
Yeah.
Tesla's autopilot and full self-driving technology
Right.
have been under the microscope lately.
Yes. The regulatory landscape is another significant risk factor.
Yeah.
There are ongoing investigations,
Uh-huh.
legal proceedings related to Tesla's autonomous driving technology.
Right.
And the outcome of those could have a major impact on their business.
Yeah.
Negative rulings or restrictions could slow down their development or force them to make costly changes to their technology and even damage their brand reputation.
And then there's the issue of public perception. Tesla's had a few data incidents recently that have raised concerns about privacy and security.
Yeah.
How much of a threat is that to their brand image?
Public perception is a crucial factor.
Yeah.
And those incidents could potentially erode consumer trust.
Yeah.
Tesla needs to be proactive in addressing these concerns and demonstrating their commitment to data security and user privacy.
It seems like Tesla's facing some pretty serious headwinds. Are there any bright spots on the horizon?
Oh, there certainly are.
Okay, good.
Despite these risks, Tesla also has some powerful tailwinds working in their favor.
Okay.
They have a strong brand, a loyal customer base, and a first-mover advantage in the EV market.
Yeah, correct.
Plus, their supercharger network gives them a leg up on the competition,
Right.
especially for long-distance travel.
And they're constantly innovating.
Absolutely.
From their 4680 battery cells to their advancements in AI
Yes.
and manufacturing processes.
Yeah.
It seems like they're always pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Innovation is definitely one of Tesla's biggest strengths.
Yeah.
They're not just an automaker.
Right.
They're a technology company that's constantly pushing the envelope.
Mm-hmm.
They're investing heavily in research and development, and they're not afraid to take risks and try new things.
Okay, so they've got a mix of risks and opportunities. How do we weigh those against each other to get a sense of where Tesla might be headed?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Right.
It's a complex equation with a lot of moving parts.
And you've been studying Tesla and the EV market for years. You're the expert here.
Well, let's dive into some more specific details. One thing that stands out to me is Tesla's focus on affordability.
Yeah.
They're planning to launch cheaper models in the first half of 2025,
Uh-huh.
which could significantly expand their market share.
That makes sense. Making EVs more accessible
Right.
to a wider range of consumers is key to driving mass adoption.
Exactly. And their upcoming We Robot event could be a game changer.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Tesla's aiming to make autonomous transport cheaper than ride sharing,
Wow.
car ownership, and even public transit.
Really?
Yeah, if they can pull it off, that would disrupt entire industries.
Whoa, autonomous robotaxis. That's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does sound futuristic, but Tesla's making significant progress
Yeah.
in autonomous driving technology.
Uh-huh.
They revealed the Cybercab and Robovan, both designed for fully autonomous transportation, with no steering wheels or pedals.
So you're saying no steering wheel, no pedals at all.
That's right.
That's crazy.
Their new powertrain is estimated to get a remarkable 5.5 miles per kilowatt hour.
Really?
Their most efficient yet.
That's impressive. But how realistic is this vision of a robo-taxi-filled future? Aren't there huge regulatory hurdles and public perception challenges to overcome?
Absolutely. Those are valid concerns.
Yeah.
Autonomous vehicles raise a lot of questions about safety, liability, and ethical considerations.
Well,
Public acceptance is crucial, and Tesla needs to demonstrate that their technology is safe and reliable.
right.
Plus, they need to navigate a complex web of regulations that vary from country to country.
So a lot hinges on whether they can convince regulators and the public that self-driving cars are ready for prime time.
Yes. And that's a key factor to consider when we look at their potential stock performance, both in the short term and the longer term.
Right, because that brings us to the million-dollar question. What's the likely direction for Tesla's stock on January 30th, the day after their next earnings report?
Well, that's where we'll pick things up in part 2 of this deep dive.
Okay.
We'll analyze Tesla's Q3 results in more depth, examine their upcoming product launches,
All right.
and try to gauge the overall market sentiment.
Sounds like we've got a lot more to uncover. Stay tuned for part 2 of our Tesla deep dive, where we'll delve into the numbers and try to predict the future of this fascinating and controversial company.
Absolutely. Welcome back to the deep dive. When we left off, we were about to analyze Tesla's Q3 results and try to predict the stock's movement on January 30th.
Right, their next earnings report drops on the 29th, and we want to know if we should expect a bump or a dip.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's dig into those Q3 numbers. Tesla reported record deliveries, a return to year-over-year revenue growth, and their lowest ever cost of goods sold per vehicle.
That all sounds pretty positive. Is there anything in those numbers that raises a red flag for you?
Well, one thing to consider is that a significant chunk of their revenue came from regulatory credits.
Yeah.
Tesla earns these credits by exceeding emissions standards and then sells them to other automakers who are struggling to comply.
So it's like they're profiting from their competitors' shortcomings.
In a way, yes, but it's important to note that this revenue stream isn't guaranteed to continue indefinitely.
Okay.
As other automakers ramp up their EV production and meet those emissions targets,
Right.
the demand for regulatory credits will likely decline.
That makes sense. So Tesla can't rely on those credits forever.
Yeah.
They need to keep growing their core business of selling electric vehicles.
Precisely, and that's where their push for affordability comes in.
Right.
Those cheaper models they're planning to launch in early 2025 could be a real game changer.
Yeah.
They could open up the EV market to a whole new segment of buyers who previously couldn't afford a Tesla.
Yeah, that's a smart strategy, but as we discussed earlier, they're facing some stiff competition.
Yes.
Can Tesla really maintain its market share as other automakers get serious about EVs?
That's the big question. Tesla has a strong brand and a loyal following, but they can't afford to get complacent. Established automakers have deep pockets, decades of experience in manufacturing and distribution, and they're catching up quickly on technology.
Yeah, it feels like everyone's got an EV offering these days.
They do.
So it's a race to the finish line, and it's anyone's game at this point.
It's certainly getting more competitive, but Tesla still has some key advantages.
Like what?
Their supercharger network is a major asset, especially for long-distance travel.
Yeah, I mean, I know people who literally only chose Tesla because of the supercharger network.
Right.
It's just so much more convenient
It is.
in trying to find a charger.
And they're continuing to innovate at a rapid pace.
We talked about those 4680 battery cells earlier. How significant are those for Tesla's future?
They're a big deal. These new cells are designed to be cheaper to produce, offer higher energy density, and improve range. Tesla's also working on dry cathode manufacturing, which could be a game changer in terms of battery cost and performance.
Okay, so Tesla's got some exciting technology in the pipeline. But what about those regulatory hurdles and the negative publicity surrounding their autonomous driving technology? Could that derail their progress?
Those are definitely factors to consider. The outcome of those investigations and legal proceedings is still uncertain, and it's hard to predict how they'll impact Tesla's business.
Yeah, it seems like every week there's a new story about Tesla and autopilot or full self-driving.
Yeah.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
It is.
So there's a lot of uncertainty hanging over their heads.
There is, but it's worth noting that Tesla has a history of defying expectations and overcoming challenges.
They've definitely proven they're resilient.
And let's not forget the broader context. The demand for electric vehicles is growing rapidly worldwide, and governments are increasingly incentivizing EV adoption. That's a huge tailwind for Tesla.
Yeah, so even if they face some bumps in the road,
Yeah.
the overall market trend is in their favor.
Exactly, and Tesla's not just an automaker anymore. They're branching out into other areas like energy storage and solar power, which could provide new revenue streams and further diversify their business.
Okay, so we've got this complex mix of positive and negative factors to consider, but we still need to make a prediction. What's your gut feeling about Tesla's stock on January 30th, the day after their earnings report? Do you still think a positive bump is likely?
I do, unless there's some major negative surprise in their earnings report. I think the positive momentum from Q3 is likely to continue. The upcoming launch of their cheaper models is generating a lot of buzz, and the overall market sentiment around EVs is quite bullish.
So you're saying it's a good bet that the stock will go up?
I'd say the odds are in favor of a positive move, but remember, stock prices can be unpredictable.
Of course.
There's always a chance that some unexpected news or event could throw things off course.
Right, so nothing's guaranteed, but based on the available information, it sounds like a reasonable bet that Tesla stock will get a boost after their next earnings report.
I'd agree with that assessment.
Okay, so we've tackled this short-term outlook now. Let's zoom out and consider the bigger picture. What's your take on Tesla's stock until the end of February 2025?
Okay.
That's a much longer time frame, and there are even more variables at play.
That's right. Predicting stock movements over a 2-year period is inherently more challenging.
Yeah.
We need to consider not just Tesla's performance, but the broader economic landscape and the trajectory of the entire EV market.
So where do we even begin to unpack all of that?
Well, one way to approach it is to think about different scenarios.
Okay.
Let's start with a bullish scenario where everything goes right for Tesla.
Okay, so in this best-case scenario, what happens?
In this scenario, Tesla successfully ramps up production of their new, more affordable models, capturing a significant share of the growing EV market. Their autonomous driving technology proves to be safe and reliable, and they navigate the regulatory hurdles with minimal disruption. The public embraces self-driving cars, and Tesla becomes a leader in this emerging industry.
So they become the undisputed king of the robotaxi revolution.
Exactly, and their energy storage and solar power businesses thrive, providing additional revenue streams and solidifying their position as a sustainable energy powerhouse.
Wow, okay, that sounds like a pretty rosy picture. What about their stock price in this scenario? To the moon.
It's certainly possible in a best-case scenario where Tesla exceeds expectations and dominates the EV market. Their stock could see significant gains, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We also need to consider the bearish scenario where things don't go so well.
Okay, so in this worst-case scenario, what goes wrong?
Well, in this scenario, the competition intensifies, and Tesla struggles to maintain its market share. Their new models face production delays or quality issues, and the demand for their vehicles falls short of expectations. Their autonomous driving technology faces setbacks, perhaps due to accidents or regulatory roadblocks, and the public remains skeptical of self-driving cars.
So instead of leading the robotaxi revolution, they get stuck in the slow lane.
Unfortunately, that's a possibility, and in this scenario, their stock price could suffer.
Okay, so we've got these two extreme scenarios, the best case and the worst case, but reality is usually somewhere in between, right?
Absolutely. It's unlikely that everything will go perfectly for Tesla, nor is it likely that everything will fall apart.
Right.
The most probable outcome is somewhere in the middle where they experience both successes and setbacks along the way.
So how do we factor that into our prediction for their stock price by the end of February 2025?
It's all about weighing the probabilities we need to assess how likely each scenario is and how those scenarios would impact Tesla's financial performance and ultimately their stock price.
Okay, so let's do some probability weighing. What are the chances that Tesla will achieve that best case scenario of complete market dominance and a robotaxi revolution?
I'd say the odds of that happening are relatively low. The competition is fierce, and there are a lot of unknowns surrounding autonomous driving technology.
Yeah.
It's a bold vision, and it's certainly possible that Tesla could achieve it, but it's not the most likely outcome.
Okay, so what about the worst case scenario where they lose market share and their autonomous driving plans stall out? How likely is that?
I think the odds of that scenario are also relatively low. Tesla has a lot of strengths, including their brand, their technology, and their passionate CEO. They've faced challenges before and come out on top. It's unlikely that they'll completely collapse.
So you're saying the most likely scenario is somewhere in between these two extremes?
Exactly. Tesla will probably experience some successes and some setbacks. They'll likely face increasing competition and regulatory hurdles,
Right.
but they'll also continue to innovate and expand into new markets. The question is, can they innovate fast enough and execute their plans effectively to stay ahead of the curve?
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? So with all of that in mind, what's your overall prediction for Tesla's stock by the end of February 2025?
Well, as I've said, it's difficult to make a definitive prediction that far out. But based on my analysis of the available information and my understanding of the EV market, I think Tesla's stock has the potential for moderate growth over the next 2 years.
Moderate growth. So you're not predicting a meteoric rise or a catastrophic crash.
I'm not. I think the most likely scenario is a steady, albeit somewhat bumpy upward trajectory.
Okay.
There will be fluctuations along the way driven by news events, earnings reports, and broader market trends. But overall, I believe Tesla is well-positioned to continue growing and innovating.
So it's a cautious but optimistic outlook.
I'd say that's a fair assessment. Investing in Tesla is still a bet on the future of electric transportation and their ability to remain a leader in this rapidly evolving space. There are risks involved, but there's also tremendous potential.
Okay, so we've analyzed their financials, scrutinized their risks and opportunities, and even attempted to predict their stock movements. Is there anything else we need to cover before wrapping up this deep dive into Tesla's future?
I think we've covered the key points, but it's important to remember that this is just the beginning of your own exploration. You should dig into the sources yourself, do your own research, and form your own conclusions.
That's great advice. Don't just take our word for it. Investigate, analyze, and make informed decisions.
Exactly, and remember, the future is never certain. Tesla's story is still being written, and it's sure to be a captivating one to watch.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our Tesla deep dive. You've gained a comprehensive understanding of their current position, their ambitious plans, the challenges they face, and a glimpse into their potential stock future. Okay, so we spent the last 2 parts of this deep dive exploring a lot.
Yeah.
Tesla's Q3 performance, their upcoming product launches, the competitive landscape, and even
Robotaxi revolution.
the potential for a robotaxi revolution.
Yeah, exactly. We covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Analyzing the opportunities and the risks facing Tesla as they navigate this rapidly evolving electric vehicle market.
And we tried to weigh all those factors to predict how Tesla stock might perform, both in the short term after their next earnings report and in the long term until the end of February 2025.
Right. It's been a fascinating exercise trying to anticipate the future of this company that's constantly pushing boundaries and defying expectations.
So let's recap our predictions.
Okay.
First up, the short-term outlook.
Ah,
Tesla's next earnings report is coming out on January 29th.
right.
And we want to know what's going to happen to their stock price on the 30th.
Right. Based on their strong Q3 results, the upcoming launch of those more affordable models, and the generally positive sentiment around electric vehicles, I'd say a positive bump is the most likely outcome.
So you're sticking with your initial assessment that we'll see a jump in the stock price after the earnings report.
I am, unless there's some unexpected negative news in that report. I think the market will react favorably to Tesla's continued growth and their progress towards making EVs more accessible.
Okay, so we're marking that down as a probable upward tick for Tesla's stock on January 30th.
Oh.
But now for the real challenge,
Yeah,
predicting where their stock will be at the end of February 2025.
that's a much tougher call. 2 years is a long time in the world of technology,
Yeah.
and a lot can change in that time frame. We have to consider not just Tesla's performance, but also the broader economic landscape and the trajectory of the entire EV market.
We talked about different scenarios in the last part. The best case scenario where Tesla achieves total market dominance and leads the robotaxi revolution.
Right.
And the worst case scenario where they struggle with competition and their self-driving plans hit a roadblock.
Right. And we concluded that the most likely scenario is somewhere in between those two extremes.
So Tesla will probably experience both wins and losses along the way. They'll need to navigate increasing competition, regulatory hurdles, and the ever-changing landscape of consumer demand.
Exactly. And their success will depend on their ability to innovate, execute their plans effectively, and adapt to those changing circumstances.
So, with all that in mind, what's your final verdict on Tesla's stock? By the end of February 2025, are you feeling bullish, bearish, or somewhere in between?
If I had to sum it up in one word, I'd say I'm cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
I believe Tesla has the potential for moderate growth over the next 2 years. They have a lot of things going for them.
Hmm.
A strong brand, a loyal customer base, a talented CEO, and a track record of innovation.
But they're also facing some significant challenges.
Yes.
The competition is heating up, those regulatory hurdles are still looming, and there's always the possibility of unforeseen setbacks.
That's true. It's not a risk-free investment by any means, but I believe Tesla's strengths outweigh their weaknesses,
Uh-huh.
and they're well positioned to capitalize on the growing demand for electric vehicles.
So for investors who are considering adding Tesla to their portfolio, you're saying it's a calculated risk with potential for decent returns.
Precisely. It's not a stock for the faint of heart, but if you're willing to ride out the volatility and you believe in Tesla's long-term vision, it could be a rewarding investment.
All right, so there you have it. Our deep dive into Tesla's future has taken us through a whirlwind of financial data, competitive analysis, technological advancements,
A lot.
and even a glimpse into a potential robo-taxi-filled future.
It's been a fascinating journey exploring the complexities of this company that's shaping the future of transportation and sustainable energy.
And we've tried our best to provide you with the insights and perspectives you need to make your own informed decisions about Tesla.
Remember, investing is a personal choice based on your individual risk tolerance, financial goals, and your belief in the companies you choose to support.
So do your own research, dig deeper into the sources we've discussed, and ultimately make the decision that's right for you.
And keep in mind that the future is never set in stone. Tesla's story is still being written, and it's bound to be filled with twists and turns along the way.
We'll be here to guide you through those twists and turns with future deep dives as the landscape of technology and innovation continues to evolve.
Until then, happy investing and keep exploring the world with a curious mind.
And that's a wrap on our Tesla Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.